part of it. Imagine you have 7,000 years of data and information, but when you go ask somebody, they barely know anything. And the majority of us, right? So it's, if we lose the language, then you lose that connection altogether with this.
Hello, Assyrian podcast family. John here in Chicago, welcoming you to episode 60 with our guest, Dr. Robby Edo. As I get older and experience more of life just outside of my bubble, I continue to learn about just how vast our language is. For the first half of my life, I always assumed people spoke Assyrian more or less like I did, with slight deviations. As I learned a little bit more about dialects, subdialects, and the history behind our language, I found out about an organization named Rinyo. Most of you have probably heard the name, seen at least one of their YouTube or Facebook videos, or even held one of their books. Some of what you probably didn't know, like the creative process behind those videos, booking many of the talented voices, and what lies ahead for Rinyo in the future, are detailed in this talk I had with Robby. We may not totally see it today, but the result of what Rinyo does for educating Assyrian youth, and even adults, will be an absolute delight to see in the next couple of decades. Support for this week's episode of the Assyrian Podcast is brought to you by Tony Kalogerakos and the Injury Lawyers of Illinois and New York. If you know anyone that's been in a serious accident, please reach out to Tony Kalogerakos. Tony has been recognized as a top 40 lawyer and a rising star by Super Lawyers publication and has obtained multiple multi-million-dollar awards. Tony can be reached at injuryrights.com or 847-982-9516. Now, let's lend our ears to the man behind some classic tunes rewritten and sung in both dialects of our lovely language, Dr. Robby Edo. So I'm going to start off by taking something directly from your Facebook, a little bit of cliff notes here. Rinyo means idea or concept. Rinyo Incorporated is a nonprofit organization established in Chicago in 2012 to help the Syriac language and Mesopotamian culture survive and thrive in the 21st century. So Rinyo helps the culture thrive through various resources like books and Rinyo Toons, which are available on YouTube. When did the idea come to you to create such a valuable tool like Rinyo?
It started when I was in high school. My family, my extended family, my parents, my uncles from both sides were very involved in church and in political parties at the time. And they were very interested, and they drilled this idea of culture and language in our heads since then. I remember walking down our stairs to the basement, you had the alphabet on the walls or on the ceiling. So it's like in your face, everywhere. So it was something natural that grow up and learning from these different organizations what was missing, like from the churches, the politics, what's something that they want to do, but they're not able to do because of time constraints or money constraints. And I was like, okay, so maybe if we invested our own money and time into this in parallel to these people, not to take over anything, or like to work with parallel with these people, maybe we can advance things even further. So that's how that started.
How does somebody access Rinyo? Very basic question. Do I need an iPhone? Can it be accessed on smart TVs, on computers, laptops?
You can basically access it anywhere. We try to make everything through the websites and the social media at this point, so you don't need a specific thing. So for example, we've seen people from our data we get from YouTube, people are accessing through smartphones, they're accessing it through their smart TVs. The moms that are staying home, they just turn on TVs, they put the YouTube on, and it just rolls. So I've
seen that firsthand. Yeah.
Right? So you don't need a specific device. We try to make things that are not very specific, like something easy to use. So you can access to websites. We have access on Facebook, on Instagram that we're heavily used. We are on Twitter and LinkedIn a little bit as well.
Children seem to be the target audience for the books and the Rinyo Toons. Can adults still benefit from these as well?
Yes, our focus on the kids first was because it's a little bit easier to please the kids. The adults seem we're a little bit more pickier, and so the kids was a thing. But we've noticed people are learning from the kids' videos as well. Adults, I have friends that they would call me and say, "Oh, I learned the alphabet through the song. I've learned different things through our coloring books," because they are activity books at the same time, and they are teaching how to draw the letters. So adults can benefit. We are working right now with a few different organizations around the world to make more adult content or for adults. One of them are the Arabic comedies we're making with Surath. So people are learning, and those are thriving right now.
Interesting.
So it's more, we started with the kids, but that's our total focus. So we're trying to grow into the adult market as well.
And then you mentioned these comedy videos. Tell us a little bit more about what those videos are going to be like going forward.
So the idea there was to try to see if we can target different markets, because we noticed there's a lot of Arabic speaking in our population, even though we don't like to admit it, but there's a large population, and we wanted to see if we can bring those on board. And so we made these comedies that are about 80% in Arabic, and then the other 20% would be one of our dialects, Surith or Surait, and to see if we can attract different people. And they just blew up on Facebook. It was just crazy. The amount of likes, shares is just all over the place. And so the idea is and we've started doing this now. We just released our second episode. We're now into a series of a guy. One of them is called Zaya, that's speaking Surith, and he's in Australia trying to look for a job. And the other guy would be Shabo, that lives in Södertälje in Sweden, is trying to look for a job there. So the idea is to slowly make these longer episodes and maybe eventually add more characters to have a full-on series and having something that our people can watch that it's funny, but at the same time you are picking up on words. So it's not all Surah. So if the people that don't speak it are like, "Oh, well, I don't understand this language," but it's more like, okay, you know Arabic, you can watch. And honestly, it's more to show off to the other populations. So it's just something a way for non-Surai to say, look, maybe I want to learn, but how do I say I want to order a certain food at a restaurant? How do I get apples at a grocery store? So this was something you can easily learn with Adam and his videos. And the other point would be they can learn and they can share with their friends. So like sometimes I have friends that are not Surai, and I'm like, okay, look, you can watch this. This is what we're talking about. And eventually we'll have cultural aspects in there as well. You can see that with our last video, he talks about certain singers, certain foods. So these people can say, oh, look, this is what these people eat during Lent and when they're fasting. So it's a cultural exposure to these Arabic speaking. Eventually we're thinking of doing it in German and other European languages as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. It's almost like a grown-up version of a lot of the kid shows that I watched as a child that helps you integrate into a language, into certain customs and culture. That's a very interesting idea. You are professionally, educational background and professionally a doctor. Your background is in medicine. Was there anything from your medical experience, whether professionally or during your education, that gave you inspiration for Rinyo at all?
There's multiple things. One was the importance of the language and culture. A lot of times we don't give it high priority. We focus on other aspects. But from being a physician, especially working with families, we see the importance of having language and how kids can learn multiple language all at once. And it's not impossible to learn multiple dialects at the same time. So it doesn't really matter. And these kids can grow up and speak the language and speak in its different dialects. And then these kids, eventually adults, that could bring unity closer. Because when at this point, when sometimes people from different dialects meet each other, they feel like they're different because they start speaking and they speak fast and it sounds like they're speaking a different language. But if they slow it down and actually even write it down, it's like, oh, look, I say those same words. So when these kids grow up now and they're learning both dialects, it'll be easier for them to communicate. It'll be easier for the different organizations to come together and have that open dialogue. The other aspect was the whole organizational part of it. One thing we're trying to do with Rinyo, and it's been successful recently, is pushing it more towards a business model, and not only we're an organization from back home. So the organizations back home were very one person or everybody needs to decide and agree. It was kind of like a Middle Eastern democracy which as I call it, it's like it's not the majority rules. It's like everybody has to agree, and
Right.
it's like it's hard to get that to happen. We'll get back to you in 3 months. We'll have to have a meeting and 5 meetings for all of us to agree, and then we'll agree and get back to you. Like, it doesn't work that way. So from being in a hospital, like a large hospital system, I work for Advocate, and we're the 10th largest in the United States right now, and we're a nonprofit, but we operate with a multi-billion-dollar budget, and we still do fundraisers. We still have our annual gala, but we have a CEO, and we have teams that work, and not everybody always agrees, but there's a goal and there's a mission, and we all go towards that goal and mission. So we try to make that work with Rinyo, and we have the split up of the teams, and we have the groups, and everybody's working, but again, they're all working for that same goal. So I tried to bring that from the hospital, and it's working a little bit better, and we are able to run a little bit faster.
It's great that in America, in Chicago in particular, we're such a melting pot that we see and hear people from multiple backgrounds all the time. So you must have seen firsthand how difficult it might be having that language barrier between, let's say, a doctor or a physician and a patient. And you also mentioned an annual gala that the hospital group with Rinyo does that as well. So that's a little bit of inspiration borrowed from them too. That's good to see. So back to the Rinyo content specifically, not only are the songs themselves catchy, but the graphics that go along with each song in the videos have these bright colors. And they captivate the attention of a young child. Well, what is the design process like for creating those videos? And what are the standards you've set as an organization that each video needs to meet?
We have several teams working on it. We have one video manager that is in charge of oversight, and he's been doing this for 3 to 4 years now, about 3 to 4 years that he's been working on these videos. And so the idea is to look at what we did before and then grow from there. So it's like we use our last video or two as a standard, and we said we have to be better than that. So it's always improving that way. The idea is to make it attractive and something that, going back to the whole we all need to agree, usually when it comes to this stuff, we make it that we all need to agree, because it's like if one of us doesn't like it, then most likely somebody else is not going to like it either. So we work on the graphics, and then we show it to the team, and the video manager will bring it back to the whole entire executive team, and we would look at it and say, okay, if we're all good and we feel like I can go and show this to my nieces and nephews or kids, then let's roll with this. If not, then maybe we should go back and work with these graphic people or animators and try to work on this a little bit more. Or is it not or sometimes we even have, what's a good word? I forgot the professional word. I forgot what they're called. But we test it on kids, right? No kids are harmed, right? So
No kids are harmed.
They just watch the video or segments of what we made. And if they're playing on their phone now, then maybe we're not doing the right thing. But if we see now they're just stuck and staring at the screen, then we're doing the right thing, right? And then so we always, like I said, we use that last one as a standard, and then we're trying to still try new ideas, because you might notice some of our designs in the past year or even this year are a little bit different, and so we're trying to try different angles and see if this might actually work. We actually are working on 2 or 3 different designs this year. We have 2 or 3 that worked from last year. We still want to see how much we can modify even more to try to attract that population even more, to say, okay, look, because you can make a lot of videos, because if you go on YouTube now, there's thousands of videos, right?
Of course.
English, Arabic, Spanish, everything. But which ones are being viewed technically? It's which ones are more attractive? We could have 1,000 videos on Rinyo Toons, but that doesn't mean they're all going to be watched. So why waste time in creating content you're not going to watch? It's more having that higher quality. So it's more the video managers and their experience. You have the graphic designers and their experience. You bring it back to the executive team, which is mostly parents, or we have nieces and nephews, and then we have those testing people.
Are there any rules for the graphic designers? So let's say, it's a kid's song. Is there ever a rule, or is it kind of more freedom to collaborate and do their own thing, where you say, if there's a little boy or a little girl in the video, they have to have black hair or wear a certain thing, or do you just let them do kind of their own thing?
It's almost a mix. It depends. I'd say with the Bible stories, we asked them to give us designs for Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and they came back and they looked more European, and so we sent them pictures of people from the Middle East, more looking like Surae, and we're like, well, we kind of need them to look a little bit more like this because technically that's where they came
Right
from,
on, yeah.
right? So maybe we should like modify that way. And then with the kids' music videos, we have 4 to 5 characters that we have from before. So and they're a little bit based on the different looks that our people have, and so we tried to ask them to follow those characters. Even let's say if we are going to start a new character, we try to make it look like my uncle or your uncle or my aunt or your grandma, and just at least it's a little bit more familiar, and to show people, look, we can make cartoons that look like us. It doesn't have to be, and there's nothing wrong with everybody else.
No,
but
of
it'll be
course.
nice to have something that we can look and say, oh yeah, that does look like my uncle from Christmas that talks a lot, or
Of course.
the guy from Thanksgiving.
And I think that's the thing you see a lot nowadays,
Yeah.
you know, like with the popularity of Black Panther, with a lot of my African American friends, they said it was great to finally see a superhero who looked like them.
Yeah.
And that same thing carries over here. When
Yeah.
a kid is watching a Rinyo Toons, it's kind of nice to see somebody that looks a lot like you
Yeah.
as opposed to
Exactly.
a classmate at school. There are also some, I want to say, incredible voices behind the songs on Rinyo Toons. Tell us about how you recruit people to add the vocals to the songs.
That's difficult. That's hard because our people are spread out everywhere. So it's more like I use word hunting. We're just like hunting for people. And it's more like, oh, I heard this video and we try to contact them. Or I was at a church and the choir sounded awesome. Who is that person up there? Or the certain deacon that was on the altar. Or we were at a party. And because we do have some that are professional singers that are on board. And so it's more listening to videos and trying to talk to these people. We like to talk to people that are new as well to try to get them to get them going. But it's difficult. It's hard because you have to find something that, can they do both dialects? Can they do one? Do they pronounce things properly? Do they have an accent because they do more Arabic? So let's say maybe I go somewhere and they're singing in Arabic or in English. And then like, well, can you do Surat? And they're like, oh yeah, I speak it at home. But when it comes to singing, they have to pronounce the words properly.
Right.
Not just like properly as if like they have to be like real words, but like it just doesn't come out properly because they're used to, let's say, English singing. So the words don't come out, certain letters don't come out. So then we're like, well, maybe we can use you for something else. We want to work with you. So, but it's like a challenge because you have to have that right voice and you have to have that right talent. And then they have to have time and they have to be able to find a studio. Because in Chicago, we have studios that we work with. But let's say if the singer is in Germany, then what are we going to do? Are we going to fly this person out here? Or are they as close as, let's say, California? So what are they going to do there? Are they going to find a recording studio? Do we have to make a deal with them? And so it's easy and hard. It's a challenge. It's exciting because you get to show off these people's voices as well. And it's like you're helping them. So it's like a fun, hard thing.
Logistically, it could be a nightmare, but at the same time,
Exactly.
that does sound like a lot of fun, actually, because you are getting voices from worldwide and not just Chicago.
Exactly.
What is the writing process like for each of the songs, especially the songs that have an English equivalent? Because I can imagine you're writing something like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, or Old MacDonald. That has to be rough to find the kind of rough equivalent in Assyrian versus English, because we don't always have a direct word for an English word. So take us through that process.
So at first, when we started doing this, we were trying to make it equal on both dialects. And we found that a little bit difficult to do because we were using, like you mentioned, we were using these songs that were already folk songs because we were trying to use that music to attract the kids more. So then we would come here and say, okay, look, this word is this in this dialect, and it's this in this other dialect, but then that doesn't actually work with the music. Like the word is too long, or it's too short, or has too many vowels, and it would turn into a mess. So then we started saying, okay, we'll separate them. And you don't have to have the same words as long as the meaning is there. And then sometimes we got to a point where the song is just too short. And so it would come out to 50 seconds or a minute. And we're like, well, that's not going to really work. And it's not worth it. And then what we would do is we would talk to these writers or translators and say, can you look at whatever we had or this song, whatever this short song is, and extend it with another paragraph. So they would look at the content and then extend it. And it's people that are involved. I could say we have people from Europe and Canada, US, and Australia involved in the process, and they're not all working on the same song. It could be like one person or two people are working on this one song in this dialect. We have a couple other people on this other song, and then they all just talk to each other through the different managers, So the link is always at the manager. So you would have like 4 or 5 different people working on these different projects. So it's an easy thing technically because we're using already something that we're just translating, but then it's like balancing that one word because it doesn't work with the music. So we try to find something equivalent, or we change the whole sentence to something that matches the meaning, but not exactly like the words from the English song.
Was there ever anything so difficult that you just decided to scrap the song altogether?
Oh yeah. We had a song or two that it just didn't work. We couldn't make the words, or like the words were too difficult because we tried to focus on that proper versus not proper. But sometimes the proper is so difficult, it's pointless. Like why give it to the kids and then they're trying to sing this thing, but it's so hard that I can't even sing it. And as an adult, and then why make the kids sing it?
Right.
It's not attractive anymore. Oh, but it's the proper word. I'm like, who cares? Honestly. Like if they're not going to use it, if we can introduce other proper words at the beginning until they get used to those, and then maybe throw on the hard ones. So it's a challenge in that point, and then you invest in this song, and then you're like, we can't use it anymore.
I've noticed some of the words too are nicely elongated to match the tune of the song, but some of the words we have in our vocabulary that's just not going to fit.
Yeah. So it's a challenge, but we have smart people on board, so I'm not worried.
Some of the words used in the songs, and you touched on this a little bit, are not necessarily words that Assyrians use in their speech, everyday speech, I should say, but they are the correct forms of the words, like monkey or some of the various colors, for example. Why was it important to introduce the correct words versus, some of the improper, for lack of a better word, but familiar words to your listeners?
One thing was the whole unity idea. I'm really big into the dialects. The subdialects. I really love the subdialects because they always have a story. Why does this village say this one word, and why does this other village or town say this other word? And then even if you pay enough attention, you would notice villages that are speaking completely different dialects, but they have specific words that they use, but then the other villages don't use. So they're different dialects, but they use the same word though. It's interesting to me, like the story and the backgrounds. So I would like to preserve that part, but at the same time, we need to still preserve our own language though, and not let it die out and turn into something else. For example, let's say in Surat, there's multiple words that are Turkish, Kurdish, Persian, Arabic, or even English. And so slowly people are thinking now, this is Surat, but technically it's not. It's a Suratized word, right? Or a Syrianized, if you would properly, but even that's not a right word to say. And so it's more like these are just purely really just English words, like automobile, for example, right? We use that. I'm like, that's Assyrian. I'm like, really? How did you make that work? Right? So,
or doctor even,
right? Doctor, right? Yeah. So we're trying to introduce words, but again, remember like how I said, like you can't introduce all the words because then it sounds foreign. So let's say in Germany, for example, a large population uses, it mixes Turkish and Kurdish a lot into Surat, into the Western spoken dialect. And when I went there and I was just talking to my cousins. It's not like I was talking to fans or anything, my cousins. And they're like, Robby, what is this? Like, we can't understand these videos. I'm like, what's wrong? Which one? And we're playing it and they're like, what is this? We need something in Suryoyo. I'm like, this is. And they're like, well, I don't understand anything. I'm like, well, what do you say for this word? And they started giving me these words, and they're either Turkish words, Kurdish words.
Wow.
I'm like, well, you're
but
not
they
really...
didn't know, right?
They
thought it was Assyrian.
Oh, no. Yeah. They're like, well, this is what we learned to use. And my parents said this is Turoyo. I'm like, well, just putting an O at the end doesn't make it Turoyo, right? So, like, you can't just do that, right? And so it's introducing these words a little bit. But again, like I said, you have to have that pace because you don't want to turn these people away and say, well, we can't understand anymore, right? Like even, let's say, the Lord's Prayer. We launched the Lord's Prayer in pure classical on both sides. And people complain. They're like, well, this is not how we pray it, though. I'm like, yes, but this is how it's the proper way to pray it, right? Or not the proper way, the proper words that are in the prayer. So we get this back and forth thing from parents and from teachers, but again, it's that pace, and you do it slowly, and you reintroduce. The other the unity part comes in. Let's say these people from these different dialects or subdialects, if you let them grow by themselves, because if you've noticed in the past 20, 30 years, ever since we left the home countries, we've been spread out a little bit more per churches, per political parties, even within the same churches. And slowly these sub-dialects are turning into major, this is what we speak. Like, I even heard it from people within the different denominations, within the different political aspects. And they're like, well, when we go and try to talk to people, we speak a different sub-dialect, they push us away. Even though they're like my cousin from the village across the river or something. And so, because they're like, oh, you speak differently. You don't say this word the right way. You say tawa for spy, so you're like evil now.
That's
you
unfortunate.
Can't say that, right? So what we're trying to bring is that unity part. Let's say, look, these are the right words. You guys are just using other words, which is not incorrect. It's just not technically 100%. So it's more giving them these options. We're actually putting out, we have 2 posts already, and they're more, we put out posts, and like, let's say a rabbit, and we put out the 2 different words that people use. One is the proper, and the other one is not proper. We didn't say it's right or wrong. We just said, well, which one do you guys use? And we made a poll. It'd be surprising how it was mixed. And then 2 days later, we put another post just saying, this is the explanation of these words. We didn't say this is the right way to say it or the wrong way, because technically there is no right way or wrong way. Like, who are you to judge? Nobody is a pure linguistic 100% in our language. And so you say, okay, this word is technically Persian and it means rabbit, right? And then this is what is in real, pure classical Syriac. And then you get to pick. Do you want to stick with the word your mom and dad taught you? God bless. This, you want to use a more proper one? Great. And so that's something we're going to start releasing more like on a weekly basis to try, like, we try to stay away from saying this is right or wrong, because we don't want to be more on the judgmental side. It's like, well, this is just more information, right? And then you guys decide on what you want to do.
Do you find yourself over the years plugging in more proper terms versus more incorrect, for lack of a better word, conversational terms in your personal life just through casual conversations?
Yeah, we try to do that. And then it technically, like I said, it helps me understand other dialects. In Turoy and Surait, the sub-dialects are not that different because we depend heavily on the classical. And so that's why we understand more at church. But then it helps me understand people that speak Eastern now more. And there are different dialects and sub-dialects. And there's certain sub-dialects that are closer, let's say, to the classical. Then it helps me. Or like I start translating. Or I learn the other words that people use, let's say, from Surait. For example, in Germany, a lot of people that speak Surait, they would say mas for table. They don't say tablitha or tawle, which is more on the proper. Tawle is Arabic, but it's still closer to our tablitha or tablitho. So then I can, when I'm listening to somebody speaking Surith, let's say in Chicago, and he says, oh, we'll put something on, let's say mas, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is, even though it's Turkish.
Sure.
But now it's like I'm learning these other languages too because of our people. Turkish, Kurdish, Persian.
That's incredible, though, isn't it?
Because
even in America, there are different dialects in different parts of the country. People from Louisiana sound completely different than people from Philadelphia.
Yes.
And I think as long as we understand that is a thing, no one group of people is going to speak identically. Yes. I think that kind of gets us over the hump. And what you guys are doing now on a weekly basis, I think, helps with a lot of that. Another great question from one of my fellow co-hosts. This does not apply to me, but a lot of millennials around my age group grew up with Juliana Gendu's version of, the alphabet song and other songs that she made for kids in the 90s. How does it feel from your perspective to know that a whole new generation of Assyrians will be singing Rinyo-produced songs years from now and reminiscing about their childhood, including those songs?
I think it's amazing. And I think it's good for Juliana Gendu, honestly, because that's what I grew up with. She had certain songs that I still remember singing when we were kids. So it's cool. Like, it's good for us and her and the other singers. Obviously, you have Linda George and you have Habib Musa and all these other singers. And it's good. Like, their songs were so amazing. They stuck in their heads so much that it led us to make things like this now and then influence more. And we are still thinking of going back and talking to these people. We've spoken to Linda George, we've spoken to Juliana Gendu and a bunch of other singers from Europe to say, okay, look, we attracted all these kids now. And then what's the next step? Do we go back to the past? Do we create new content for the kids now? We've spoken with the Luendos as well. Like, they have, like, they're all singers at the Luendo house. They're all like awesome singers. So we've spoken to them as well. And they have like very awesome creative ideas. So we're trying to talk to these people that were there before, that the ones that influenced us. And so, okay, look, this is what you guys did. And this is what we did now. What else can we do to try to like make these kids more interacted with the language and love this language and culture even more?
Why is it important to ensure the survival and foster the growth and overall health of our language and culture?
I think it's you lose your identity if you don't speak your language, and I think it's you lose the history. Like even right now, like we do speak. Let's say we do speak Surat, we speak Surai, Toroyo, or whatever you want to call these different words. But how many people know about the culture properly? Like even Akitu, like barely anybody knew what that meant 3 years ago.
True.
Okay, not or even now, like try to go ask people what is Akitu. Oh, it's New Year's. Okay, what day is Akitu? And they'll tell you it's April 1st. I'm like, well, only April 1st? And so like, and that's only one part of it. Imagine you have 7,000 years of data and information, but when you go ask somebody, they barely know anything. And the majority of us, right? So it's if we lose the language, then you lose that connection altogether with this. And you go along again with, let's say, the churches when they say, well, why do we use Syriac in the churches? Why not just do English because we're in America? I'm like, then why not just go to the church next door, right? Why am I going to drive 20 minutes or 30 minutes to church to listen to this priest say something that half of it I don't understand?
True.
If that connection is not there. And it's the same thing with the political parties. Why stay connected? Like you can take an example with, let's say, more like Italians and Greeks. If you look at things, okay, Italians, they still eat Italian food, but they don't speak the language. They're not that connected. You don't see them all with Italian stuff. But let's say, looking at the Greek population, they speak it. They think everything originates from them. You go in their front lawn, you feel like you're in Greece.
Very prideful.
Right. So, but they speak it. They're really big on speaking Greek, right? So I feel like that should be a lesson. Okay, do we want to go the route of the Greek people did? Do you want to go the route that the Irish people did? Again, they don't speak Irish or their Gaelic. They do speak English now, but they don't speak the Gaelic. They lost that, right? They adopted English now. It's the same thing with Italians. They don't speak Italian anymore. They do have some aspects. So what are we going to look like? Oh, we're going to run around with the Assyrian flag and eating dolma, but then we don't know anything about any of our kings. I'd rather like stick with the language, so at least like we know where it came. Where did that flag come from? Where did this bull with the wings come from? Or what was its job? Or did it just appear out of nowhere? Somebody was bored and drew a picture, or what was the meaning behind it? Like the importance about it, and then it gives you a sense of pride as well, because you're like, oh look, my people are so cool and they're so awesome. They did all that stuff back then. Why can't we do stuff now? Like why can't we help preserve languages now? Why can't we help build and do stuff now, instead of always like we seem like the victims now? Oh, people should help us. They should donate to us. They should give us a hand. I'm like, why can't we give people a hand? That's what we used to do for 7,000 years. We were the ones conquering and building and making and creating. Now we're sitting there, oh, please come help us. Like, why? We can help each other and help other people. So if you lose the language, then what's connecting you then? To the people like the Suraya that are in Canada even, or the people that are in Germany or Sweden. Like you go there and they're speaking German, you're speaking English. You're like, okay, cool. You're from Iraq, so yeah, my dad too. Okay, great. Now what?
I think an important distinction to make too, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that in America, Italians and the Irish largely were not welcome with open arms when they immigrated here. So I think a lot of them thought, okay, we need to speak English, we need to acclimate to the norms of American society, where we're lucky enough, not to say that prejudice doesn't exist against Assyrians, it does on some level, but we're welcome, generally speaking, with much more wide open arms than the early 20th century Italians and the Irish were. And I think the Greeks knew that too, and that's why they hold on to their culture and their language so much as well. So not only should we, but piggyback off of what you said, we kind of have a lot more freedom to do that.
Exactly.
We can still live here and we could still I should foster and grow our overall language and culture. So I think what you said was spot on.
Thank you.
Rinyo Toons specifically have nearly 1 million cumulative views, and your social media presence reaches thousands. Did you think you would receive this much support over the course of less than 7 years that you've been established?
We're grateful for the support. Our YouTube channel, Rinyo Toons, is at about 6,500 followers right now. The views are like you mentioned. And we have about 10,000 followers on Facebook, on our main Facebook page. We're grateful. I didn't expect this much, but it's kind of cool that you were able to run this fast. And we just want more. We want to reach more and more people. So it's exciting to have so many people and to go places and people know who you are. before you start saying anything, and you just say, "Oh, I'm Robby." They're like, "Oh yeah, you're from Rinyo and Rinyo Toons," or like within our staff goes places. All they need to do is mention the word, and they know you. So it's kind of cool, and it makes us want to do more, right? So because like now there's expectations. They're like, "Oh, you guys did this. And now what?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, okay. So what else do you guys want?" And people feel like they start comparing us to what they see in their normal life. Let's say that if you're in America, they're like, "Oh, but like when I turn on YouTube, there's 1,000 songs in English. Why can't we have that in Assyrian or Surait?" I'm like, yeah, well, we're working on it. It's just not that easy. But then it makes you want to do more. Let's say if we didn't have so many views, then you would be like, well, nobody's already watching. It's not a big deal. If we release something every 6 months, they'll still see us. But that's not the case. It's like you mentioned, there's so many views, there's more expectations. People are posting when is the new song released, when's the new puppet show released, when is the new next Adam video coming out, or what are you guys doing next? So it's fun. It puts that pressure on you, on the whole team, to say like we need to provide even better because people are actually watching this, right? Let's say if nobody's watching it, you're making a book and handing it out, it doesn't have to be that awesome. But then when people are actually using it, and they're critiquing back in a positive way and saying, look, we want more of this, and now the next thing you produce has to be even better than that, then you have to like sit there, work more hours, and get more and more talented people on board to try to produce something that those 10,000 people will be interested in.
Where do you want to see Rinyo 5 years from now?
I wanted to see it bigger. I want it to be more of an influencer, and we want to be on the ground more. We are trying to make that work now with our activities in Chicago, and that we're trying to do in the United States, and we're trying to grow that into Germany and Sweden and Australia. On the ground is important as well, because we noticed we don't have those activities on the ground. It might seem like in certain places, let's say in Chicago, we have activities, but then you go to other places, you don't. Or even in Chicago, or let's say looking back at the New Year's we had, right, like last week or 2 weeks ago, how many activities, most of the activities you noticed were all parties, or some places where they worked hard that they were able to make parades, right? Like in Chicago and some other places, they did it hard. They did put in effort and stuff, and they had parades. But if you looked at how many places had family-friendly activities or kid-friendly activities, it was numbered. Or I honestly didn't even see any on the social media posts. So we still have a lack of things, that we're still not paying attention to the future. So, okay, great, we're having a party. But then like those kids are not going to come to the party. Or even if they do come to the party, they'll be just running around. And then when they grow up, they don't understand the significance of this huge thing that we've been celebrating for 8,000 years. So having more on the ground activities is something I would want to see. We've been doing that the past 2 years. We've had 3 or 4 events at libraries or at social areas, and it's all free. So imagine that growing, having the ability to have more family-friendly activities, more mom-friendly activities, where you have stuff for the kids to do, and they're educational at the same time, but they're fun at the same time, and you're able to teach them about obviously our religious aspects with the different denominations, respecting them, and then having the teaching about our kings, our queens, the emperors, the empresses, the gods, the different protectors that we were involved in, or all this awesome culture that we have, and to bring that in, because you can't always do that through the videos. You have to have that face-to-face with these kids. Again, that comes in from my doctor point. You can't have screen time over 2 or 3 hours a day. So then what do you do with the rest of the day? They have to have activities that would stimulate their brains. So through these live things with arts and crafts, then we can get to this point. And then imagine you have that unified aspect of, oh, we're in Chicago and we did this, and then my cousin in California actually did the same thing. So then they can compare and they can say, oh, look, let's try to do something different, instead of having this segmented, oh, we don't know what's going on, or you guys do this, or was Akito on March 23rd, or was it on April 1st? Well, I don't know. My mom said it was April 1st, and my mom said it was March 23rd. Well, which one is right? Are they both right? So then when you have this teaching all over the place and on the ground as well, then more and more people will get educated. They'll come closer to each other instead of fighting. They'll say, oh, yeah, cool, I know that. I can do that too.
Higher visibility, more education. And you mentioned the future, and I want to loop back around to a point you made earlier where you're going through the creative process, the video process, and you actually screen test it with kids. How do you
Yes.
go about choosing which kids get in the room and get the VIP access of watching the first cut of
It's
these?
usually family members, right? Like we haven't gone as far as we actually did it once, but it was like we did a premiere kind of thing. So our last music video we released, we had our fourth live event, and during that event we showed it to those kids before we released it on YouTube, right? So they got to see it before, but it was the final product. We don't have a set of kids yet to say, look, we'll go and we'll bring them in and have them view this. It's more like my cousin, your cousin, or the managers, their nieces and nephews, and they show it to them and say, look, what do you guys think? Right? But eventually that would be something we'll be able to do. Obviously, with our office, now that we have an office, we could have a setup. Or even like with these activities we're trying to set up. We're trying to go into, we have it now almost once every 3 months in Chicago that we have our live events with the kids. We're trying to expand that maybe to every 2 months or eventually even to once a month and in different locations in Chicago. Like right now we have them in Skokie mostly, and we're trying to advance into Morton Grove and the Roselle Schaumburg area in Chicago. And then maybe there we could have a section say, okay, let's show you these 30 seconds.
Okay.
Right? And then that would give us even a bigger population. But kids don't lie, so it doesn't really matter if it's my cousin or somebody I don't know, because if they don't like it, they're not going to stare. Right? So it's still okay to use our families right now, but eventually we'll be moving into like our fans.
Excellent. And as from the adult perspective, if I want to brush up on my Assyrian, if I want to learn how to speak better, if I'm on Rinyo's website or on YouTube, what's something that I can check out that would be beneficial to me or my friends or my family?
For adults right now, other than the Arabic videos that are the 80-20%, we have a Bible search engine that's in Surith, Surite, and then Classical Syriac. And you can search the Bible verses that way. You can read, and the fonts, you can pick different fonts. But we don't have anything specific other than those two things for adults right now. We are working, like I said, with a bunch of different groups from the US and Europe to try to move the content to adults as well. Because again, we've been focusing on the kids, but we've noticed when, let's say, we go and hand out our books are very basic, the kids' books. But we're coming to a point that the parents are not interested in buying these books or getting the books for the kids, because at first they were saying they're too difficult for the children. I'm like, it's an ABC book. Like what? I don't know what else I can do easier than this. Or it's a little tiny story. And they're like, and then it's like, well, I can't really read it either. And so we've been noticing a lot of these families themselves, the parents don't know the language. They don't know how to read and write. And we're like, okay, this is a problem. So like, how do you get it to the kids if the adults don't know it? Like you can't get an adult to buy a book and read it to the children if they can't read it themselves. So we're trying to figure out this out and try to get it to the customer.
Quick plug, give us your website, social media details. What do we need to look for on YouTube when we search there?
For YouTube, our main page there is Rinyo Inc, INC, and you would see different prayers, hymns on there, and you would see Adam's Arabic videos, the comedies. And then for the children's stuff, you would go to our different YouTube channel, which is Rinyo Toons, RINYOTOONS. And then on Instagram and on Facebook, it's the same. We have a Rinyo Toons, and then we have a Rinyo INC platforms.
And we always leave it with the heavy hitter at the end of every interview. All of our hosts do this. If there's anything you want to say to Assyrians everywhere listening to the Assyrian podcast, or just any final closing comments, the floor is yours.
Well, first, I want to thank you guys. You guys are doing an amazing job at the Assyrian podcast. And it'll be great to see more of your work in the future. It was amazing to be part of this. One thing I would want to say is trying to work with different businesses and try to figure out ways that we can benefit from each other. I've seen it in some places and it's amazing, but it'll be cool like if we can expand that to bigger places. Instead of depending on donations, we can benefit each other. Because with Rinyo, we have, like I said, we have a bunch of studios in Chicago, worldwide, and we partner up with different printing places in Chicago. We have 2 or 3 different places we print at. And so if we have this ability to work as different Assyrian Surai businesses, then we can help each other more instead of that. And we can market for each other. We can help support each other with different ideas or thinking and brainstorming. So I think it's beneficial to help grow each other, because if you're targeting, let's say, Surai, but they don't care anymore because they don't know the culture as much, then they're not going to come support you. Or if you're even thinking of the idea of collecting money to send back home, but if you don't have a population that's interested, then there's no more money to send back home anymore. So it's like, it's this thing of focusing on the outside, because just from looking at social media, you notice how most of our focus is on the home country or home countries. And there's little focus on the people here in Europe, in Canada, or North America, or Australia. And well, Australia does a better job than most of us, but you know what I'm saying. The idea is to try to think of the kids here and think of more activities in these foreign countries, because if these kids grow up and they don't care as much, they're not going to care anymore to send money to their cousins in the home country. They'll say, well, let them figure it out. I don't even know what they look like. I don't even know what Qamishti or Arabic looks like. Why do I care anymore? So it's a very interesting point that we try to focus on with Rinyo, is when people come and say, we'll work with you guys, but oh, you don't send money back home. Oh, you guys don't work back home, so we're not going to help you. We want to help people only back home, which is great, but who's helping the people here though, and helping them grow, building schools, building infrastructure here? So I'm hoping like more people would be interested in that as well.
Big things coming from Rinyo in the next few years. Keep a lookout for them. Dr. Robby, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. Thank you for coming.
This has been another episode of the Assyrian Podcast. Thank you to everybody who made it to the end of this episode. I hope you like what you heard. You are all the reason why we do this. We love sharing these wonderful stories of wonderful Assyrians with all of you around the world. You're a giant listening audience, and you're all appreciated. A big reminder for you, if you haven't done so already, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at Assyrian Podcast, and also rate and subscribe via pretty much any podcast app that you use on your iPhone or Android device, or whatever it is that you use. Rating us also helps us get featured in the App Store, whether it's on an iPhone or on an Android device. And once again, thank you so much for listening to episode 60 of the Assyrian Podcast.